Okay, so welcome back to Windwalker. Today we're just going to go over kind of the current state of the game. In terms of the scene, combat, not too much has changed. Mostly Gary's been working in the back end, making sure that we're saving our player data properly, um, and making sure that like we have a character creation. He's been making some UI, and I've been really trying to get the balancing done for the game, and that proved to be much more challenging than I thought it would be. Um, Previously, in other like prototypes and games that I've made, I haven't had to create such a complex system. And then we'll just take a pause and talk about that a little bit. Um, so I can show this one. I have a lot of this stuff in my blog, but just to briefly go over our economy. Let's see, this sheet. Oh yeah, this one. So I have all these different like parameters that are used to calculate power level, how much gold these things should be worth, and then with these gold values, I also try to figure out how much gold a monster should drop. So for example, um, this let's say this Pinchy, he's a crab monster. He's gonna drop gold relative to how many pinchies you essentially need to kill to be able to buy a chest from this NPC. So these costs will correlate to that player level, and that player level is over here. We can modify this, and you can see that the numbers have changed. They've also changed here. It's just to verify that that's actually changing, but you can see these costs are changing. Um, List of items. Here, this is a little bit more static because we have we're only using the levels at the min and the max of what these monsters or of when these monsters will be encountered. So these things will be a bit more static, but using these parameters, we can tell or we can get a good sense of what progression looks like, at least in terms of the economy. And then here in the NPC shop, there's a chance to show different items, what quantity it is, and these prices will be based on that player level. You can purchase pets currently. And yeah, so back here, I crunched some numbers. I created the algorithm to determine power level based on stat, essentially to normalize every stat that we had and consolidate them to a power level. So these are the 38 different stats that we have, and 1 point of dex correlates to one power level, 2 points of fire res correlates to one power level, etc., etc. So with that in mind, I was also able to determine how powerful passive abilities should be for the various classes that we have. And this should be different based on like power level curves. So in one class, you might have um, a weaker passive to begin with, but once they get into their like second job, maybe they'll get a bigger um, a passive that gives a higher power level bonus. So to keep it simple at around level 10, I tried to give them, I guess, like a balanced bonus uh, gain of power level. So you can see in the warrior and ranger stats, they're getting flat increases to a certain stat. Warrior gains 30 physical damage and physical defense, and then the ranger gets 2.5 dodge and crit chance. This number was, I think, closer to like 5%, 10%, but when I did the math, I realized that, oh, this was not in line with how much these classes should get at these levels. And then here's a few notes. Some of these are rough estimates, but they're better than nothing. And it really helps me to gauge how much these increases should be. So this is just a quick run through of the passive abilities. The one thing that, or a few things are really hard to figure out what the power level gain would be. For example, this priest at level 30 has a 10% heal to all party members on regular attack. And this could be written probably better like this. Heal 10% of party members max HP on regular attack. And this thing is kind of hard to figure out how to balance for, because yeah, I mean, I could make a rough estimate, but I think with something like this, it would be better to um, just kind of play test and figure out from there if this number's good or not. And for other things like, oh yeah, gain physical damage as wind damage at level 30 for Windwalker, um, I can actually go to this sheet that I created and look at this Windwalker. At level 30, this is how much stat gain they get per level, and this is um, the secondary stat gain based on these primary stats. So to backtrack a little bit, these primary stats give this much bonuses, and this was in my last video. And then from the novice, you get from 1 through 9, they'll gain, every class will have these stats, I guess these stats to be more specific. And then once they get into their second class, for the Windwalker, what we can do is add these values up, add these values up, and then at level 30, we know um, what their stats are going to look like. And so based on that calculation, I generally have a sense of what their physical damage will be. And this won't be accurate to a T um, because I don't know like what items they have or they're using. So I'm just basing it off their base stat gain. Um, and then that gives me an estimate of 68.5 power level at the level of acquisition, which is 30. And then I did it again to see at endgame at max level, what is that item gain going to look like? And for these more static increases of stats, it's going to just be the same at the level of acquisition as well as max level, and other things that scale with that stat in mind will increase over time. So yeah, I've just been in like economy balancing world recently, and it's been pretty interesting. And I kind of am beginning to like just, I don't know, just even changing these numbers and seeing other numbers move. Um, but yeah, I get a really good sense of how things should be valued, and it gives me a really good sense of what progression is going to look like. And I imagine like this is already, I've iterated on this, I don't know how many times. I imagine as we get closer to launch, it's just gonna change completely from this, because I know there's a few things that to me are just not quite right, and um, yeah, we have tickets and tasks to kind of remedy those things. Um, so yeah, so let's go back to the actual game itself. And so currently I see I have a few different skills. You can drag and drop them here, target an enemy, target this guy. If I can click him, okay, I think that's interesting. Let's try that again. So it looks like my pet had a higher initiative than me. Okay, looks like there's something wrong with the targeting system. Um, okay, he attacked. Let's see if I can attack someone. Okay, that's strange. Looks like my pet's really doing damage here. A few technical difficulties, but no worries. Something's going on. But it's okay. We haven't really looked at combat too much recently, and we'll iron those things out. Yeah, not really sure what's going on here. Okay, so combat hasn't really been touched in a while. Looks like there's a few things that valid editor window. Yeah, sure, whatever. Um, okay, yeah, we'll fix those things later. But what I wanted to show was this character creation that Gary's been working on. That looks pretty nice, if you ask me. Um, yeah, let's maximize that. So yeah, you can change the hair, you can change the face. That one looks kind of creepy. You can change your name and confirm, and then you can log in. We have Google authentication set up, so you can log in with your Google account. And I think one of the coolest things that Gary did was this inventory system. This UI could definitely use some work, but we're just starting with that. So we have these items. You can click on it. You can see the stats, the name, and then you can equip it, and you can see that the character actually does equip that item over here on the left. And you can equip all these items. Greaves, you can unequip them. Shoulder pads, supposed to be an amulet, but we're just testing to make sure everything works. And then your character actually equips them in the game, which is really cool, if you ask me. And these things affect the player's stats, and those stats will be reflected when you're in combat in that previous scene. So yeah, that's character creation, equipping items in game, and reflecting that physical change, the visible change when you're doing that. Let's see. What else do we have? The login scene is just sign in with Google. I've already, I think, signed in with Google, so it may just work if I just click that and it'll just put me back in. Yep. Um, Splash screen's not really done yet, haven't really been fixed. Just a loading bar that goes. Um, yeah, let's see what else. Attributes. I went through the different links. I'm not going to click this because there's a little bit of sensitive information in there, but I went through the many different sheets that we have and changed a lot of our naming things. I think the biggest thing was like we called power level item level before, so I had to go in the code base as well as these documents and sheets and just kind of do like a replace all. But yeah, I changed these. I haven't seen these offensive and other skills yet. So that's what I'm gonna do next is figure out how to balance these offensive abilities based on what classes they are, and then the buffs, debuffs, the summons, etc. Um, table shops. This is me. This is my portfolio. The project's Windwalker, of course, biggest undertaking yet. My blog. This is where I kind of just write about what I've been learning and how I'm applying them to Windwalker, essentially. Little about me page. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching.